2, 1. Here we go. I am LaRod Smalls, and yes, this is Rise of the Black Warrior podcast. Okay, so as always, the first thing I want to do is thank you for taking time to check out this podcast. If you're new to the community and this podcast, I want to thank you so much for checking us out, and know that we are about power. We bring you messages from mentors about things that matter to you, how to create more power in your world in those areas. And if you've been following us, I want to thank you for keeping up with us. Like and subscribe and share this message with others that could use it. Let's dive into today's conversation. Anything in your world can have meaning, and you give it meaning. So I'm all about Marvel movies because I really believe, like Stan Lee said, is that we all embody the characters of heroes. And one of the movies that came out in this generation that really impacted me was the Black Panther. And ultimately, from the rise of the Black Warrior movement, the experience, all of the stuff that we create is following the path of the warrior king. Someone who is king not because they were gifted it or somebody inherited the rights to it. Warrior king, meaning that I earn it. I earn being king every day. And Tchalla, who is the main character of the Black Panther movie, the warrior king himself, Black Panther, he kept a group of people around him that really embodied all of the things that he was. And there was a picture, an image of the movie, the trailer, that really struck me. And it struck me so much that I actually have a big posted mural of it on my wall, like this one, okay? Now, I had my good friend Jerry's stepson in my office today. His name was Aiden, and we broke into a conversation that was powerful. He said, "Why are you all about Black Panther, and why do you have this big picture of, all these characters?" So I explained to him that each one of these characters embodied a characteristic or an ideal or something about him that I thought was really powerful, and it's within all of ourselves. And I want to share that with you today in hopes that you'll see something in everything else in your world. So now first, let's look at Tchalla. Tchalla himself was a character about integrity. He was all about bringing honor and following the traditions and the power of Wakanda, right? He was the king of Wakanda who took over for his father, T'Chaka. Now, whether you know anything about the movie or not, from the days of old in kings, right? You take over from your father as king and try to be a better king. So he really wanted to be the best king that he could. But in the pathway, he met and had all these people in his life. Now, to his right was his nemesis in the movie, right? And his nemesis was Eric Killmonger Stevens, who was the son of his father's brother, right? So which was really like his cousin, who represented a portion of him and how I see him called vengeance. He saw things the same way T'Challa did, but his response to them was vengeance, was anger, was killing people, which is something that could be in all of us. We all represent and have a portion of us that wants to act out and respond to the things we have inside of us in a vengeful and a negative way. Now, on the very left of him was Nakia. Now, Nakia, she represents compassion, love. She saw all of the same things that T'Challa saw, the things that concerned him about working with the rest of the world and sharing what he knew and sharing what Wakanda had, right? But she wanted to give back to the world. She felt compassionate. She wanted to open up what Wakanda had to the world and give it, and she was willing to do it. And that was a portion of T'Challa's life himself. He felt that deep in his heart as well. Now, on the far right, you had someone who exemplified true loyalty, Okoye, right? She was loyalty, loyal to a fault. She even said, hey, listen, I don't care who sits on the throne. I'm loyal to the throne. Even when Killmonger took over as a negative being and she didn't like who he was and represented, she remained loyal to what it was that she was. She was the general in his army, in the army of the king, in the army of Wakanda. So it did not matter who it was. And loyalty sometimes can be a fault to us. Sometimes we believe no snitching. We're so hung up on loyalty that no matter what is going on, we don't judge the situation. We are 100% loyal to the fact that we believe in a thing, right? Now, on the far left of that, the person who she's actually in love with, right? Wakabi. Now, he represents resentment. He is so angry that Claw, right, who is the villain in the entire movie, was responsible for killing his parents, and he could not let it go. He was so angry and so bitter and held so much resentment that he was willing to even turn away from Tchalla, his best friend, who he represented the border tribe with, right? He was protecting the entire environment, the entire Wakanda, but he turned against him because he was so angry and bitter and believed that Tchalla was not going to do vengeance, was not going to get back what he lost through some type of strike of anger. Now, that resentment is in all of us. We all embody and have some of it in us. And in all of these characteristics that I just talked about, they find their way in our life and in our leadership and in our styles and in our character. But we as kings, we as queens, right? We as leaders, we as community people, we as tribesmen, we as people of the world are going to represent any one of those particular things in our lives. But we get to determine who we are going to be. We have each one of those things happening in us and for us. But we have to determine if we're going to be at a composite of all of those things and be a good balance, or we're going to go to the extreme like each one of those characters were. Each one of those characters are an extreme example of who Tchalla needs to be. Needs to be a moderate understanding of all of those things and then be a real true leader. So that's just my take on it, all right? And I want you guys to think about this. Take anything in your world and see where the power is. See where it is that you can find a lesson of power and then place it in your line of sight. See, this poster, this being, right? This representation of this movie, which could seem like insignificant to anyone else, it sits on my wall as a reminder that I have all of these things inside. I represent all of these traits, and I can't let any one of them take over for me. I have to be king and represent well and be a good leader and understand that I am just a piece in a bigger puzzle of this world. So I hope that you guys got some value to this conversation today. I shared with you about my take on the movie Black Panther and what the characters mean to me, but more importantly, how you can perceive the world and all that's in it and create power and symbolism for yourself. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Hey, I want to challenge you. Go out to riseoftheblackwarrior.com. Go to riseoftheblackwarrior.com and participate in this movement. Find power in your world. And I'm challenging you right now to be your highest self. And remember, you're only one decision away from changing your whole world. Peace.